The stars had always seemed indifferent to the small blue world called Earth. But on the day the Vorathian delegation arrived, the sky itself appeared to bow. Massive crystalline ships hovered in geostationary orbit, their hulls shimmering like frozen lightning. From the lead vessel descended a single envoy pod, sleek and obsidian, touching down on the cracked tarmac of what had once been a United Nations landing field. Ambassador Clisser stepped out first. Tall, elongated, with skin like polished obsidian veined in silver, he moved with the effortless grace of a species that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Behind him floated a dozen aides, their multiple eyes scanning the ragtag human delegation with barely concealed pity. "Humans of Earth," Clisser's voice resonated through universal translators, smooth and condescending. "The Vorathian Concord offers you security. In exchange for your allegiance and a modest tithe of your planetary resources, we will shield you from the galaxy's true predators. Pirates, slavers, the devourer clans. Without us, your fragile civilization will be harvested." He gestured lazily toward the sky, where holographic projections displayed images of burning worlds and chained species. The message was clear: submit or be consumed. The human representatives stood in silence for a moment. Then, from the back of the group, a low chuckle broke the tension. It grew. Soon the entire delegation was laughing, deep, genuine, almost relieved laughter. Clisser's multiple eyes narrowed. "You find the extinction of your species amusing?" A stocky woman in a worn military jacket stepped forward. Captain Elena Ramirez, veteran of too many brushfire wars, wiped a tear from her eye. "No, Ambassador. We find your offer amusing. You really don't know who you're threatening, do you?" The Vorathian's frills flared in irritation. "We have studied your history, tribal conflicts, atomic weapons used on your own kind. You are barely a Type 1 civilization. We are Type 3. The math is simple." Ramirez smiled, the kind of smile that had once stared down warlords and corporate tyrants alike. "Math doesn't account for stubbornness, Ambassador, or spite, or the sheer human refusal to kneel." Back aboard the Vorathian flagship Eternal Dominion, Clisser reviewed the recordings with his council. The humans had given them 7 days to reconsider their approach. 7 days. As if the Concord needed time to crush an insect. "They are posturing," one counselor hissed. "A display of false bravado common among primitive species." But Clisser felt the first faint itch of unease. On every conquered world, the pattern had been the same. Initial defiance, followed by awe at Vorathian technology, then broken submission. Yet these humans had simply laughed. He ordered reconnaissance drones deployed across the planet. What they found confused the analysts. Humans were not unified. Nations still bickered. Cities bore scars of old wars. Their technology was patchwork. Rockets that barely reached their own moon, yet quantum computers humming in hidden bunkers. Factories that could pivot from making cars to missiles in weeks. A species that, despite everything, kept innovating through chaos. Most telling were the people themselves. In the streets of New York, Tokyo, Lagos, and Buenos Aires, citizens went about their lives with a strange calm. Some painted over old bomb shelters with vibrant murals. Others held festivals. Children played in parks while their parents quietly stocked supplies. It was not fear. It was preparation. On the 6th day, the humans sent a single message via every frequency the Vorathians used. "Come and take it." The Concord responded as they always did, with overwhelming force. Hundreds of drop pods rained down on major population centers. Not to destroy, but to demonstrate. Vorathian shock troops in power armor the color of midnight marched through Times Square, their energy lances glowing. Civilian evacuation orders were broadcast in perfect human languages. Resistance would be met with surgical precision. In orbit, the Eternal Dominion trained its planet-cracking batteries on empty ocean as a final warning. Clisser watched from the command bridge, expecting the familiar pattern. Panic, surrender, gratitude for mercy. Instead, something else happened. From hidden silos across every continent, ancient yet modern missiles rose. Not nuclear, something far more clever. They carried no warheads. They carried hackers. Viral payloads designed by rogue programmers, security experts, and bored teenagers who had spent decades preparing for the day the sky fell. The Vorathian shields flickered as human code, messy, adaptive, almost alive, slithered through systems that had never encountered such creative malice. On the ground, resistance was not the desperate last stand Clisser anticipated. It was coordinated chaos. In the ruins of Chicago, a retired Marine sergeant named Marcus Okonkwo led a squad of civilians armed with 3D printed railguns and jury-rigged EMPs. They didn't try to win a fair fight. They lured Vorathian troops into subway tunnels where human knowledge of every rusted pipe and forgotten maintenance shaft turned the battlefield into a deadly playground. In the mountains of Nepal, monks and engineers worked together to redirect glacial melt into hydroelectric surges that overloaded Vorathian landing zones. In the Australian but it was the children who haunted Clisser's analysts the most. Young humans, some barely teenagers, slipping through lines with nothing but homemade drones and absolute fearlessness. They weren't soldiers. They were playing the deadliest game of their lives and winning. Clisser watched a feed from Berlin. A Vorathian enforcer, 12 feet tall in full battle plate, had cornered a group of refugees. One small girl, no older than 10, stepped forward. She held up a simple tablet. "You're scaring my little brother," she said, voice steady. "We don't want to hurt you. But if you don't leave, my dad and his friends are going to make you regret it." The enforcer laughed. A deep, resonant sound, and raised its weapon. The building behind him exploded in a shaped charge of industrial explosives and household chemicals. The girl had bought time. Humans had used it. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, alarms screamed. The ship's AI was fracturing under relentless human cyberattacks. Entire fleets of tiny, cheap human drones, launched from shipping containers and backyard workshops, swarmed the crystalline hull like angry hornets. They carried no heavy weapons. They carried paint. Corrosive, smart paint that ate through energy matrices while broadcasting human memes and laughter across Vorathian channels. Clisser stood frozen as the final report came in. They had lost contact with 312 ground teams. Not destroyed, humiliated. Many were being escorted back to their pods by human volunteers offering medical aid and hot meals, apologizing for the inconvenience. One Vorathian sergeant had been found sitting on a park bench in Seoul, helmet off, staring at a group of humans singing old folk songs around a fire. When asked why he wasn't fighting, he simply replied, "They offered me tea, and they meant it." Clisser opened a direct channel to Earth. Captain Ramirez appeared on screen, dirty, exhausted, but grinning. "Ambassador, ready to reconsider your approach." "You are insane," Clisser whispered. "We could glass your world from orbit." "You could," Ramirez agreed. "But you won't, because somewhere in the last week, you realize something. We don't break easy. We don't kneel. And if you push us, we'll make damn sure the whole galaxy remembers what happens when you threaten humanity." She leaned closer. "We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and ourselves. You think your fancy crystals scare us? We've stared into the abyss and laughed. Now it's your turn to decide what kind of story you want to be." The Vorathian fleet withdrew. Not in defeat, but in stunned retreat. Their once pristine ships bore streaks of human graffiti and corrosive memes. Their databanks now contained centuries of human art, music, and stories of defiance. Clisser stood on the observation deck as Earth grew smaller behind them. A junior analyst approached hesitantly. "Ambassador, their history. They call it the HFY phenomenon in some of their private networks. Humanity, fuck yeah. It's not a strategy. It's who they are." Clisser remained silent for a long moment, watching the blue marble turn in the void. "We came offering chains disguised as security," he said quietly. "They offered us something far more dangerous." He turned to his council, frills lowered in something like reverence. "Never threaten humans again. Not because they are stronger, not because they are smarter, but because they refuse to be anything less than free. And they will burn the galaxy down to protect that freedom. not out of hatred, but out of love for what they could still become. The stars stretched as the fleet jumped away. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If the story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.